Hey, it's Mike from Backyard Boatworks. Today's project is to install the seat supports. What we're going to do is temporarily clamp the seats to the seat supports and install them into the hull. With the clamps, then we can do some final adjustments to get everything lined up properly. Once everything's lined up, then I'm going to use some super glue to glue the seat supports to the hull. Once everything is lined up and locked in properly, then I will remove the seats, and then we'll get in there and epoxy and glass the seats in more secure. And so anyway, that's today's project. Let's see how it goes. After much tweaking, I did finally get this seat support to where it fit in. For some reason it would fit until I put the seat in there, and then that would change the angle. But after about 3 tries now, it's nice and tight. The back one here, well, I can't tweak it with one hand, but it's tight. All of the other seats seem to fit really well. So now my next thing to do, what we're going to actually do is we're going to super glue the seat supports in at the angle that they're at right now, and then hopefully we can take the seats out without the super glue is going to hold them really tight, but it hopefully will hold them in there tight enough until I can get the seats out, and then we can put some epoxy in there to lock them into that angle. So here we go. Let's see what happens here. So we'll put a little run of super glue along the edge here. And let me go to the other side. I do not want to super glue the seats to the seat supports. That would be a bad thing. So I'm trying to stay completely away from the seats. So again, we will run some super glue down there. And again, all this has to do is just hold it long enough until I can get the seats out and start getting some epoxy worked in there. I'm going to put the camera down so I can push the seat support up against the hull. Okay, so it's nice and tight. I'm going to go ahead and spray some actuator on it. Let me set this super glue over here where it's safe. Okay, and then they give you the instant activator, which makes it set up almost instantaneous. I have never used this before, but I was pretty impressed with it. Okay. Definitely has a good, interesting smell. Probably not too healthy, but all right. At this point, I'm going to let it set for just a little bit, and then I'm going to try to take the seats out, or I'll check to see if the seat supports feel like they're anchored in there, and then if that's the case, I'll pull the seats out, and hopefully they will stay in that position. Okay, let's see if the seat supports are glued into position. So I'm going to remove the clamps here. This feels pretty solid. And then let me go over and grab the other side. Okay, so let me lift the seats out. And it feels pretty solid there. I wouldn't want to just pull on it really hard, but it's not going to go anywhere until I get a chance to get some epoxy in there. So now let's see if our middle seats are in the same, did the same thing. Middle seat out. And that does feel pretty solid. Now I'm going to have to put the camera down to get the back section out. Let me see, maybe I can set the camera down here. All right. Okay, it looks like all our seat supports are locked in with the super glue. So now I'm going to go ahead and mix up some epoxy and we'll see if we can't really lock those things in. I mixed up a batch of the epoxy and the wood flour and put it in a 1 gallon Ziploc bag. And let me nip the tip of this thing. Okay, and I'm just going to start like putting icing on. We're just going to run a nice little bead. And all this stuff would be a whole lot easier if I could use both hands and not have to hold the camera. But sometimes you just can't use the tripod. Anyway, I'm going to do one with the camera, and then the rest of them I will do using both hands so I can get a better job at it. I don't have to spend so much time cleaning up. And so yeah, this one's not turning out quite as good as it should, especially using my left hand. There's not doing too bad. And one of the things I was reviewing some of the older video when I first put the I think the first 3 sections together, and I was like, I'm not really quite sure how this was stitch and glue was going to work compared to the way I've built other boats. But I'll have to say I'm very impressed with it. Especially having the computer cut panels, they've come out perfect. I mean, I don't think there's a 1/32 gap on anything. And then you look at how the seat supports line up, and they're perfect. I mean, there's little drill holes there to show you where to line them up, and everything came. I mean, if you were trying to cut this out by hand after plotting it, there's no way you would have come out even close on stuff like this. But I don't think most of this stuff has more than like a 1/16 error in it. So yeah, I'll have to say I'm very impressed with the CLC's kits. So anyway, let me go ahead and finish beating in the rest of these seat supports, and I'll show you the final product. Okay, so I've got a nice bead of epoxy over all of the seat supports, and I've tried to clean up as much as I could. Looks like maybe a little bit there I could clean up a little bit more. I did have a little excess left, and so I also did the center board, or the center board plug. I got the seat supports put in last night, and so now we have, as you can see, we have flipped the boat upside down. And what I'm planning to do, let me climb underneath here. Okay, so with it upside down, I should be able to easily get at and add a fillet on the bottom side of the seat supports. And then we'll also add a strip of glass to help reinforce it. So that's the next project. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up some epoxy here. That's starting to look like peanut butter to me. So I'm underneath the hole, which is upside down, and we're going to add a layer of epoxy and flour along the top seat rails here. So let's see if I can do this while I hold the camera with one hand. Okay. Okay, so we got some in there. We'll have to work it in with our flaying stick. And let's do this one here. It's a little easier, better light, so you can at least see. Don't need epoxy dripping on the ground. Alright, I think you kind of got the idea. I'm going to go ahead and use both hands so I can at least salvage some of the rest of this. I've measured for the front seat support the glass strips, and I've got them all laid out here on a piece of wood with some with a plastic trash bag over it. And I'm going to now saturate that with some epoxy, and then I'll carry that in and we'll put that on the seat support to give it a lot of extra support. So I have brought the board out here under the boat with the 4 strips that are saturated with epoxy, and now I'm going to try to transfer those up onto the seat supports. And I'm not sure if I can do this with one hand or not, but we'll see what happens here. So let's see if I can. Okay. Okay, we got that mushed in with the epoxy and wood flour. That one actually went pretty well. And then I'll trim all this stuff off after it gets hard. That actually went pretty well, that side. And actually this side, I look back at it now and it looks pretty good. So I'll go ahead and glass in the rest of the seat supports, but this looks like probably a good spot to end this video. If you've enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it, and you might even subscribe. So we'll see you on the next video. Thanks again.